Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to Wingman Joker, where every story comes to life. Dive into captivating tales that will thrill, inspire, and entertain. If you enjoy the journey, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to join the adventure. 21. Refining and extracting. Have a seat. Tang Yuqiu motioned him to sit. Chen Ren settled into the seat across from her, his expression calm, though his mind raced beneath the surface. He studied her quietly, noting the wariness in her eyes as she glanced his way, suspicion and impatience mixed into her gaze. She was a woman with a strong but steel will, and her presence carried a sense of authority that even experienced merchants would tread carefully around. But Chen Ren knew she needed him, and a sharp look wouldn't deter him. After a moment, he spoke with a deliberate casualness, leaning back slightly in his chair. "I'm sitting here, yet you didn't even have your maid bring tea for me. Aren't you concerned for your guests' comfort, young miss?" Yuqiu's lips curled into a wry smile but didn't reach her eyes. "You've already had more than your fill of free tea, Chen Ren. Why should I offer more?" Chen Ren's expression soured at the comment, a faint frown crossing his brow. He straightened, meeting her gaze head-on. "Honestly, what is your problem with me?" The teasing light vanished from her face as she fixed him with a glare that could cut sharper than any blade. "You really don't remember, do you?" The question hung in the air, and Chen Ren felt extremely uneasy. He drew in a deep breath, letting the moment stretch as he gathered his thoughts, reflecting on the burden left by the actions of the man whose body he now inhabited. "The previous Chen Ren's karma truly follows me like a shadow," he thought, a rueful pang twisting through him. He had inherited not just this life, but all the regrets and mistakes that came with it. He lowered his head slightly, a gesture of contrition. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice steady but subdued. "I'm sorry for trying to take advantage of you while I was drunk. I know that's not an excuse, and I shouldn't have acted that way, even if I wasn't in my right mind. But I am not the same man anymore. I would never do something like that again. All I hope for is that we can put it behind us and move forward with this business deal, with mutual respect." He paused, glancing back up to meet her gaze directly. "I won't ask again. I've apologized, and there's nothing more I can do to make it right. It's up to you whether you forgive me or not. But I'd appreciate it if you could keep your sharp words to yourself, regardless." Tang Yuqiu's expression shifted, the hard edge in her eyes softening as she blinked, taken aback by the sincerity in his tone. For a moment, she simply gaped at him, as if struggling to reconcile this Chen Ren with the one she remembered. Her mouth opened and closed, but no biting retort came forth. After what felt like an eternity, she lowered her head, letting out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "I understand," she said quietly, her voice lacking the usual bite. "Perhaps, we should move on to discussing the business idea." She hesitated for a moment, then turned toward the door. "But first, I'll have them bring tea. It seems only proper." Chen Ren adjusted himself in his seat as the maid poured tea between them, the steam curling upward with a faint floral scent. He took a moment to collect his thoughts before speaking. "Apologies for taking a bit longer than expected. I wanted to come sooner, but, well, the work was delicate and required time. But now, I've got something that might not only make me wealthy, but make you even wealthier." Yuqiu raised both her eyebrows. "What is it, then?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral, though he could see a flicker of curiosity behind her eyes. Chen Ren reached into his sleeve, pulling out a small pouch. He placed it on the table between them with a soft thud. "See for yourself," he said, leaning back slightly, gesturing for her to open it. With a skeptical glance, Tang Yuqiu untied the pouch and carefully drew out a small glass vial, its contents a vivid, crystalline blue that caught the light and shimmered with a subtle radiance. She turned it over in her hands, examining it from every angle, then shot him a puzzled look. "And what exactly am I supposed to do with this?" "Drink it." Chen Ren chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, nothing like that. Just place a drop or two in your palms." Yuqiu hesitated for a moment but uncorked the vial, releasing a faint, enchanting aroma that immediately filled the space between them. Her eyes widened as she caught the scent, recognizing what the item was. She placed a few drops in her palms and rubbed them together, the fragrance blooming in the air around her, subtle notes of rare flowers mingling with the warm undertone of exotic spices. Her expression shifted, surprise giving way to realization as she stared at him with eyes wide open. "Your idea was, fragrances?" she asked, a hint of disbelief creeping into her voice. Chen Ren nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Yes, I believe it's the perfect product for us to make a breakthrough." I've done my research, talked to Tang Sholan, and assessed the market. The perfume industry here is lucrative, with even a modest share promising substantial returns. And beyond the gold, think of the connections we'll forge with the wealthy madams of the large clans. This could open doors for us. Yucho's expression remained guarded, though a faint glimmer of interest flickered in her eyes as she considered his words. But she didn't let her skepticism drop entirely. I understand that, but this is not an easy market to break into. Do you have any idea how much a single bottle of this can cost? Even if you've made a good batch, that doesn't mean the wealthy families will accept it. Reputation, refinement, exclusivity, these all matter here. What makes you think you can compete with established names? Her voice sharpened at the end, challenging, as if testing the strength of his resolve. Chen Ren met her gaze squarely, knowing that this was the crux of their negotiation. If he could convince her, they would have a chance to carve out a place in this competitive world. Chen Ren leaned forward, his tone calm yet carrying an edge of urgency. It's 15 silver for the lowest grade perfume out there. The merchants and the established shops cast exorbitant prices on such things, knowing they can get away with it, he said. Yucho sighed, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Yes, that's precisely why this isn't a simple venture. The production cost alone is immense, and I don't have a massive stockpile of silver to burn through on a risky investment like this. Her voice grew sharper as she continued, her doubts spilling forth. Moreover, the real challenge is matching the quality. We'd need at least a small string of chi trapped within the fragrances. Even for normal ones, we would need sect connections, or we won't be able to procure a batch of these. Without that, our product would be no better than a roadside vendor's attempts at perfume. It wouldn't stand a chance against the ones currently in the market. Before she could finish, Chen Ren interrupted, raising a hand. I don't think you quite understand. She stopped mid-sentence, frowning at him. Understand what, exactly? She asked, crossing her arms, her impatience barely masked. Chen Ren gestured to the vial still sitting between them on the table. How much do you think that vial is worth? Smell it again, take your time. Yucho glanced down at the small container, uncorking it again and bringing it close to her nose. She let the scent flow over her, taking in the subtle complexities of the aroma. Her brows furrowed slightly as she assessed it, her thoughts turning. If I had to guess, 20, maybe 25 silver wen, at least. Even without a strong chi presence, its fragrance is refined. Chen Ren's lips curled into a small smile, shaking his head. No, I got it for 0 money. It didn't cost me a single copper. Yucho's head snapped up, her eyes widening as she looked at him with disbelief. What? She blurted out. It just took some trouble gathering the right herbs and figuring out how to process them into a perfume, Chen Ren replied smoothly, leaning back in his chair, clearly enjoying the surprise playing across her face. In this world, perfumes and fragrances were a luxury, but not in the way one might expect. They were most commonly sourced from the sect mountains, remote, mystical ranges where scented plants with spiritual properties grew in the shadow of ancient cultivation grounds. It wasn't rare for these mountains to produce a special kind of flora, their essence subtly infused with traces of chi due to the constant exposure to the spiritual energies of cultivators. Each month, as the plants' juices overflowed, they would trickle down the mountain streams, gathered by sect members and sold to the right buyers at an extravagant price. These perfumes, carrying even a faint whisper of chi, commanded a high value in the market. Some of the highest quality vials contained a quarter of a single circle of chi, enhancing their appeal and providing a subtle, refreshing aura to those who wore them. Naturally, only the wealthy could afford such a luxury, and most of the business clans that dealt with the sects guarded their supply lines closely, ensuring that the rare scented extracts reached only the hands of upper-class ladies and noble families. It was this rarity that made perfumes a coveted item, their status reinforced by the aura of prestige they carried. To most merchants, entering this market would be an uphill battle, requiring both deep pockets and strong connections to the sects. And yet, here Chen Ren was, claiming he had managed to produce something similar without the backing of a powerful sect or the blessings of a business clan. Yucho stared at him, struggling to process his words, her suspicion momentarily overshadowed by curiosity. Chen Ren leaned forward. I have a way to extract perfumes from ordinary herbs. It's a method I've been working on, mixing and refining, and I'm still figuring out the details. But the potential is there, and I'm proposing a way for us to produce good quality perfumes using nothing more than common herbs. He paused for a moment, gauging her reaction before continuing. With this method, we could sell our products at a price far below the current market rate. 5 to 7 silver per bottle, something that would appeal to the middle class, while still maintaining a high standard of quality. And for the wealthier clientele, we could create premium blends, tapping into their desire for exclusivity. He spoke slowly, laying out the structure of his idea, briefly mentioning the production process, the markets they could target, and the profits they might stand to gain. As he spoke, Yucho's initial skepticism gave way to a growing interest, her eyes widening slightly with each new detail. She couldn't hide the calculations running through her mind, the potential profits and market shares practically dancing before her eyes. By the time Chen Ren finished speaking, she was leaning forward, her focus entirely on him. When he paused, she finally managed to find her voice, though it was tinged with a blend of wonder and wariness. This all sounds promising, but what is the method you're talking about? How do you plan to turn ordinary herbs into something that can rival the fragrances from the sect mountains? Chen Ren met her gaze evenly, his expression turning serious. Before I tell you, we need to perform a chi oath. I know you're immortal, but I can ensure that you'll feel the weight of the oath as well. This isn't something I'm willing to share lightly. Yucho looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. The idea of an oath must have sounded strange to her, especially since she had no experience with cultivation. But after a moment's thought, she nodded, a hint of trust creeping into her expression. All right, I'll trust that you aren't lying to me, Chen Ren. Chen Ren inclined his head and took a deep breath, feeling a slight twinge of discomfort in his chest as he prepared for the next step. He drew on his qi, letting it flow through his core, channeling the energy into a thin thread that he weaved into a pattern in the air. His hands moved, fingers tracing symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly before vanishing into the space between them. The qi oath was a form of soul binding that cultivators used when sealing a pact or safeguarding a precious secret. It wasn't a complex technique, but it required precision and intent, and once completed, it carried an unbreakable weight. For Chen Ren, the knowledge of the oath came easily, something that the previous Chen Ren had been familiar with, passed down through techniques he had learned before his life took a turn. Yet, as he performed the ritual, he felt a sense of necessity, an understanding that compared to the influence and resources of the Tang clan, he was merely a single cultivator, vulnerable without the protection of this oath. A faint ripple of energy settled into the air between them, the atmosphere shifting subtly as the oath took hold. I promise not to share the method of fragrance making you would share with me without taking your permission for it. If I break the oath, my life will be forfeit, she said, making the oath. Though Tang Yucho couldn't see the qi threads, she shivered slightly as the heaviness of the promise settled over her, a subtle pressure that spoke of the seriousness of the bond they had just created. Chen Ren lowered his hands, letting the last traces of energy fade away, and met her gaze with a steady expression. Now, he said softly, I can share the method with you, and you can be sure that it will remain between us. Chen Ren sat before a variety of herbs spread across the table before him in his room. The air was thick with the scents of dried petals, roots, and leaves he had painstakingly collected. He had spent his precious time testing different combinations, boiling and refining them, until he'd discovered the right mixture that could hold a fragrance rather than just a fleeting scent. Tonight, he was ready to try distilling the first batch of what he hoped would become a new path to wealth. Tang Yucho stood in front of a wall, her eyes fixed on him as he worked on the process. He leaned over a small clay pot, carefully heating a mixture of herbs he had ground into a fine paste. A second vessel, half filled with clear water, sat next to it. Chen Ren adjusted the flame beneath the pot, focusing his qi to maintain the precise temperature needed. It was a delicate process, one he had repeated over and over to perfect. He watched as the steam rose, carrying with it the rich, floral scent of the herbs. The steam condensed against a cool surface, trickling down into a small glass vial set underneath. The scent that filled the room was unlike anything found in the lower markets, sharp yet sweet, with an undertone of earthy richness. As the last drops settled into the vial, Chen Ren lifted it and swirled the liquid inside. The result was a vibrant blue color, glowing softly under the candlelight. It was far from the purest or most refined fragrance, but it was crafted entirely from herbs that could be found outside of the expensive sect-run sources. He placed a cork in the vial and stood up, his expression satisfied but cautious. Chen Ren knew that this product needed testing before it could be sold. He looked back at Yucho's widened eyes. When he handed her the vial, he spoke his thoughts aloud. We need to test this for any side effects. I used herbs that are known to be consumed safely by people, but it's best to make sure that it doesn't cause any harm when used on the skin. Safety comes first, even if the ingredients seem harmless. Yucho took the vial with a look of awe. She swirled it around the vial as how a man with experience would swirl a glass of fine wine. Her eyes widened as she inhaled the scent, marveling at its complexity and the clear, natural notes it carried. This method, it's unlike anything I've ever seen, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. How do you even know how to do this, Chen Ren? He couldn't help curling his lips upwards. Why would I tell you all my secrets? Just know that it's going to make us rich if we play our cards right. She stared at him for a moment, processing his words, then nodded slowly. Yes, it will, she agreed, her mind already racing through the possibilities. Chen Ren's expression grew serious as he leaned closer, meeting her gaze directly. And for that to happen, you need to put in the work. My part was to create the product and develop the method. Now, it's your turn to show what the Tang clan's resources are truly worth. You'll need gatherers to collect herbs, workers who had performed a similar qi oath to distill and bottle the perfumes, and a distribution plan. From creating the product to packaging it, everything has to be handled with precision. And we can't afford delays. These perfumes are cheap to produce and quick to make. We need to seize the market before anyone else catches wind of what we're doing. Yucho nodded, her eyes focusing on the vial at hand. Her earlier hesitation had vanished, replaced by a sharp focus. She even managed a small, confident smile. Don't worry, Chen Ren. I'll make sure our perfume business becomes the best in the city. Chen Ren's smirk widened, and he shook his head slowly. I wouldn't have come to the Tang clan if I just wanted to dominate the city's market. No, I want this business to reach beyond our borders, spread through other cities and become a household name across the entire empire. This is just the start. Yucho's eyes flashed with something akin to ambition, something he found himself familiar with whenever he thought about his plans. Then we'll make it happen. For both of our sakes. Chen Ren inclined his head.